I have made a quick adjust sling for my airsoft rifle from a cheap buckle like this and a length of belt. Longer than this one, but you get the idea. In this video I'm gonna tell and show you how and why I made it and show how it works. But before we begin, a really important thing is, notice I said airsoft rifle. It is certainly possible to attach something like this to a real rifle as well. However, there are dedicated, professional, expensive products, quick adjust slings on the market, which will work a lot better and a lot more reliably than this. I have had already a malfunction with this, which made me unable to bring my rifle forward. It was just one time out of many, but it did happen. And if you really need to bring your rifle forward and you can't, it might get you and everyone else killed. So this is for fun and games, okay? Maybe people have improvised something like this on an actual battlefield, I don't know, but this is not the best solution and it is potentially dangerous, be warned about that. Why make something like this if those professional solutions that I just mentioned do exist? Well, because it's really expensive to pay like 80 euros for a sling. This has cost me like 3 euros total, maybe 5, I don't know. It's like a cheap buckle and a piece of belt. Like, how much does it cost? Buckles sometimes even come for free on some old backpacks or something else. So this is really cheap. It works reasonably well, and if a malfunction, like I mentioned, does happen, it doesn't get me killed. It does get me maybe hit by a BB, and then I'm hit, and then I lost the game, but I'm not dead. So how does this work, and why are adjustable slings a good idea anyway? For airsoft specifically, I would actually not begin with an adjustable sling, because it's one more thing to think about. But as you progress, as you start doing things like transitions to other shoulder, as you start to often take roles that include you tightening your rifle to your back really tightly and sprinting and doing objectives, capturing the flag, crawling over barricades, doing stuff which requires a lot of violent movement, that's when an adjustable sling becomes a boon. And I can release it like this. Here we go. So here's how I use it. Right now it's in the longest position, so if I want to switch shoulders, that's no problem at all, at least when it comes to the length of the sling. I can also do this, sidearm, do stuff. Running in this position is not so great because, you see, so if I want to run, if I want to really put my rifle away on my back, I take my right from below, swing through, bring my right where my left was, bring the rifle back, and pull on this belt with my left. It's attached to the rifle's butt, as you see, and you see this right here is loose. I will find the tail and pull on that, and now the rifle is cinched down and I can no longer bring it forward, and it's as secure as I can get it with this. Now, this right here, what I've just pulled, is this tail, and it feels distinctly different from this knot, which I will use for releasing. And I grab the knot, pull it back, and by the way, let me show you a cool detail by tightening this again. You see that the knot is kind of here, like on my side. It's not all the way back, because I've included this length of belt here, so it's more comfortable. So I grab here, pull on the knot, bring the rifle like this and grab it, and then my elbow goes like this, swing through, and here we go again. Let's see it in a close-up, from the least interesting part to the most interesting. So the least convoluted and interesting is here. It's just attached to a QD mount, which is attached to the rifle's butt. Nothing happens here for the largest part of the length of this belt until we arrive here. Now, At the other side, at the other QD mount, it's not all immediately there. There is like a rock and roll length of attachment here, bringing the sling controls further forward, which makes a big difference for me, so I don't have to reach so far back behind me to operate this. Now to the interesting part. This buckle right here, hiding behind this blue duct tape, it's disabled, so I can no longer open it, which helps me not losing my rifle when I'm fumbling with controls, so I don't want it to accidentally open. It no longer works as a buckle. I later in the video show how I've done it. And now the juicy part. Now here is the adjusting part of the whole thing. This here is the tail. This one is pulled to shorten the sling. And you see that it just goes through the buckle like this. So when we just have tension on the belt, when I pull apart like this, I cannot move it because first in the central piece on which this belt sits, there are some grooves which engage the belt. There is a lot of friction. And second, and very importantly, this layer of the belt on which the force is applied, the more force is applied, the more it squeezes down this tail part right under there, making it very difficult for it to move, which is why it's not moving. This pressure is no longer there if we just change the angle under which this belt engages the buckle. So instead of a straight line here, we flip it and it's 90 degrees like this. So this part of the belt is no longer pressing down on this. And now if I apply some pull, yeah, we can totally move it now. And this is exactly what this pull tab is helping us do. So we could just lift the buckle with the thumb or the finger or whatever, but that would not really be quick and nice to use for a quick adjust sling, which is why this pull tab with a knot on it, it just helps to change the direction of the buckle in relation to this belt, making it so that the buckle can no longer hold the belt in place. That's all it does. And I have painted it black here in this portion of the video so you can more easily see, this is the belt that goes to the tail and goes around the neck and all that. And this is the pull tab. Those are two separate pieces of belt. They're not connected with each other, although the pulling tab shares a slot with the tail. You will see it later in the video as well. Also later in the video, when I show how I crafted this, this part is not yet painted black. I've done it in retrospect so that I can show you this part and you can see better. Let's begin crafting. Well, I've already begun actually, because there is nothing wildly complicated about this thing right here, but I will walk you through it anyway. So, as you can see here, this is my rifle's barrel pointing that way. Here is the buttstock. And this one is the forward QD attachment. It of course doesn't need to be QD. It can be whatever other attachment. It can be attached to the rifle directly. It can be more classic clips. In my case, it's those QD clips. Although I'm not a huge fan of the QD system in general, it's really simple for demonstration purposes, and this is what I currently have at hand. So to this QD is attached this length of belt. And the way it is attached is with my nuclear snail bolt and washer system. So here is the bolt, and there are two washers, and also of course a nut on the other side of the bolt. The whole thing is trimmed, sanded or filed so it's not rough, and then a locking compound is used so the bolt doesn't loosen on its own. This is what I use for most of my attachments in my entire post-apocalyptic crafting. Now, of course, rivets would also work, although they have, in my opinion, significant disadvantages, as well as a couple of advantages. And of course, sewing might work, But I hate sewing, and it would take a lot of stitches and done really well, because I want this to really hold. I don't want this to just open up and then the rifle falls and all of that. Nah, I want a sturdy attachment. So whichever way the attachment is done doesn't matter, as long as it holds. And in fact, I have an entire separate full video about this attachment method on my channel. So if you want to check it out and figure out whether or not it's something for you, you can look for that video on the channel. I think it was called "Are Rivets Better Than Bolts?" And of course the answer is no, in my opinion. Bolts are better. But anyway, I will just be skipping the parts of me doing these bolt and washer attachment in this video, because I have an entire separate video about those. So whenever you see these, it just means I've done one of those attachments, all right? So this is the way this belt is attached to the QD. So it goes through the QD right here and is attached to itself. And on the other end of the loop, we have the buckle. More specifically, you can see this right here is the adjustable side, but what we have attached this to is the non-adjustable side. So this right here goes to the forward attachment on the rifle, and the rest of the sling and stuff will continue from here with our manipulation controls, or whatever you want to call it, being here. So this is what we are gonna do next. So for the next part, I'm going to take a length of belt, and by the way, what I always do on nylon belts, and you gotta do it carefully not to set anything you don't want to set on fire, and just carefully melt the end of it. Don't inhale the smoke, it's toxic. Here we go. This prevents it from fraying. Still hot. Touching it with fingers while still hot is also not a good idea. So this one right here will go, and I'm going to detach this part. Now this is the adjustable side of the buckle, and for now I still can detach it. Later, no longer. And this goes through here. So not through the middle, but just through this part, okay? The outmost part of the buckle is where this goes. And this is where we're gonna tie a knot. And to tie a knot, a surprising amount of belt is actually needed. And I don't want the knot to be too close to the buckle. I want it to be somewhere around here. So let's try if this tremendous amount of sling, for how short it is about to become, is gonna make a decent knot. And I think it is. So having eyeballed it a bit, I'm gonna cut off this length of belt. So we have just something like this, really simple. So what we really have is about 20 centimeters, or like a forearm's length of belt attached to the outermost end of this adjustable side of the buckle. And now I just take it like this and do a simple knot, looping it into itself. And now, before I tighten the knot by pulling on both sides, I can decide what length of knot I want. And I want to make it a bit shorter. I don't want it to be too long, but also not too short. And I think something like this. Sorry, you cannot see anything right now because I'm pulling on it tight. Something like this works great. So this knot, and I can trim off the excess here. Actually, I took too much belt, but it's better to take a bit too much if you have enough belt than to take too little. So this is the knot. And this knot is what I'm going to be pulling at when I want to do a release. So to relieve the tension in the buckle later on. Okay, so we keep it like this for now. So this is slowly starting to take shape. I can connect my buckle pieces now. All right. Now, before I continue, I want to disable the functionality of this buckle as a buckle. I don't want to accidentally touch this and release my rifle. If this is something that you want, power to you. I think it's dangerous because then you're like fumbling about and then blam, it falls on the floor and bad news, you know. In order to disable this, I want to prevent these wings from going in so it can no longer release. And I do that by putting something under them. A wire that I have here, it can be anything else. It can be a zip tie, it can be whatever. And this wire, I can even cut it with my scissors. And then I'm gonna just move this aside a bit and kind of slide it under. So this wing is spread to the side a bit. It can no longer go in because there is this wire blocking it. And I don't want it to slide out. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side as well. I'm very sorry about it not focusing. I just can't bring it to do so. And I'm going to go around another time. And another time, basically using up the wire that I have. Whenever I have done this enough times, I just twist the wire against itself, trim off the edge. This is going to be sharp, so I don't want it to be sharp in my face or in my hand. So I also kind of bend it into that cavity that we have created there between the wing and the buckle. And look at this. I'm no longer able to disengage the buckle. There is, however, one problem. The wire might move out of the way, theoretically, enabling me again to do so. And this is not what I desire, so... Okay. So I'm going around the wire and around the buckle, especially on the side to which it's not supposed to slide to. And this will not hold forever because tape deteriorates over time. But this is fine for now. I really press it and no matter what I try, I cannot bring this buckle to disengage anymore. So this no longer functions as a buckle, so I cannot accidentally release and drop my rifle. There might be a use case where it's wanted, but I cannot think of one right now. The next step is actually simple but looks a bit convoluted, so follow closely. So here we have this knot thingy tab and it's attached here, right? And next thing we want to do is through the slot closest to the buckle center, we go from below and up like this. So this is going through that other slot, not the slot in which the pull tab is in, but the other one. And then we come around and this time sharing the slot with the pull tab, go in like this. Here goes through the slot unoccupied yet, goes around and sharing the slot with the pull tab goes down. All right? And now, if we've done everything right and hold here and also on this long side of the belt, nothing happens. If we pull here on the short, it tightens. All right? It also will release if we pull not like this, but angle the buckle and pull like this. And this is exactly what this tab is going to be doing later on. So, this right here is going to be the end. So for this end of it, I'm going to give it about a hand's width plus some. And then flip around the end a couple of times, like this. 1 time, 2 times. Punch a hole in the middle with this blunt screwdriver. This time I'm gonna use a small washer. There are also other methods, again, such as sewing, or I could also just burn this with a lighter and press together, but this time I just want to do it like this. And this is supposed to stick out a hand's width so it can be grabbed to tighten the whole thing anytime. And in order to accomplish that, we need some sort of a blocker here. Once again, just push through here with the awl. Here is the end of it. So this is the end, although it doesn't really need this big stopper here, but it's nicer for grabbing and then pulling on it. It has a certain feel to it. Stops the hand, it's nice. And when the the sling is lengthened, it can go no more in than this stopper right here, which means that we will always have this part to pull on to pull it tight again. In this next step, I determine how long I want the sling to be. If you are experienced already and know how long your slings are supposed to be, or have some other sling to take measure from, you can do that. In my case, I just hang it over myself and I think, will this long of a sling be enough for all possible layouts of gear I might come up with in the future, including a winter jacket and a vest or something like that. And in this case, I think for my case, yes, this is definitely long enough. This is actually very long. It might be even too long for me. But regardless, the way I'll go about this is kind of eyeball it, and then to check it out, I'll just wrap a couple of layers of duct tape around my belt here. And this end, by the way, is just, the tail end of it. This is what's gonna get clipped off after I put a connector through here. And unless I'm bouncing with my rifle or like behaving in a dumb way and making it tear the duct tape here, it's gonna hold for me taking measure. I just wouldn't leave it like this. Like having everything held by duct tape is a bad idea, but for just taking a couple of measures and getting a feel, I can let go of it for now, no problem. So this is definitely long enough, and that's why I'm just gonna put a connector through here, and this is what it's gonna look like. As a quick side note, I have found a way to make transitions to other shoulder impossible, even if the sling is long enough, like right now. And that is, if the belt is directly on my skin, especially if I'm sweaty, then it's not only uncomfortable, but it's also generating so much friction that if the distance here is short enough and I try to switch shoulders, it's really not great. So this is why I love having nice tall collars on which the sling can ride like this, because that is making it a lot easier. So, I hope you liked this video and found it useful, entertaining, and all those things. If so, support me on Patreon. It's linked in the video description, as well as the Nuclear Snail community group on Facebook, where you can post your stuff and read my stuff and read other people's stuff and so on and so forth. Have fun crafting, have fun playing Airsoft, stay safe, stay cool, and until next time, hail the snail.